Yesterday we gave you a fly-on-the-wall account of that public meeting in Portlaoise where hundreds of people expressed their concern for the future of services at the local hospital, specifically the accident and emergency unit. This morning we're told a breakthrough has been achieved, and the local Gael TD Charlie Flanagan joins us once again. Deputy Flanagan, you're welcome to the programme.
Good morning, Will.
So what is the position now?
Yesterday morning, Will, you interviewed me on this matter, and the interview was somewhat incomplete insofar as I spoke about the recruitment process and I spoke about the difficulty with achieving the appropriate level of non-consultant hospital doctors or junior doctors for Portlaoise. This is a problem not only for Portlaoise, not only for the Midlands, not only for Ireland, but for Europe, and it's to do with the training and registration of doctors and the movement of medical personnel across the world, visas, registration and the like. I wasn't able to confirm to you yesterday that sufficient numbers had been allocated to Portlaoise to allow the service to be retained. There have been developments yesterday, and my understanding now is that there will be sufficient personnel on the ground on the 11th of July to allow for the service that had been long established in Portlaoise in the A&E unit to continue unchanged, and that there should be no changes to the accident and emergency delivery service from Portlaoise Hospital. The numbers will now stack up, I understand.
And what happened yesterday to achieve this?
Well, there have been ongoing process and meetings. The priority of the Minister for Health, James Riley, has been to secure nationally appropriate numbers. It's been my priority locally to ensure that the process was such that there would be people and personnel available for Portlaoise. Obviously, there are important consequences such as visas, appropriate level of training, appropriate registration, passed by the Medical Council, fitness to practice, all these issues, because we are appointing doctors here, and it's absolutely essential that people are employed and take positions that are absolutely fully qualified and capable for the job. That meant that it wasn't possible for the HSE to say that, the recruitment process was complete. It isn't possible for me to say this morning, nor indeed for the HSE to say that the recruitment process is complete. But what I can say is that the developments are such that there should not be a difficulty now in Portlaoise for next Monday week, the 11th of July. But let's wait and see who's on the ground. Let's wait and see the numbers stacking up on that date. But
speaking of numbers, have you been given any specific figures as to how many junior doctors will be in place once that critical date rolls around?
There will be sufficient doctors in place to allow for the type of service that has been in existence in Portlaoise to continue. That means surgical registrars and senior house officers, medical registrars and senior house officers in sufficient numbers to make sure that we have a complete team. We can't have half a team in Portlaoise.
Sure, but you don't have that specific number, do you?
We need a full complement.
Do you have the specific number?
Listen, I'm not into actual numbers of doctors or registration. I'm a politician. I'm not a medical appointment board. I don't make these decisions.
Okay, but was the person informing you qualified to determine if the number was sufficient?
I've been speaking to the Minister for Health, I've been speaking to officials in the Department of Health, and I've been in constant contact with the HSE. Yesterday morning you asked me, was I not disappointed that the HSE were not telling the full picture? Yes, as a public representative, I would always be disappointed if the HSE were not telling the full story or showing the full picture. Over the last few days, and in particular over the last 48 hours, I have been in continuous and constant contact with the Minister for Health, James Riley. I've spoken to him personally, officials in his department, in his office, and senior personnel in the HSE, and it looks better now than it did 24 hours ago.
Is this a long-term position that the HSE is taking, or will we return to a position where the numbers decline again and we're in the same boat in a few months?
That's a really important issue, Will, and it's the crux of the matter for Portlaoise. There are always going to be difficulties with hospitals and recruitment. There's the matter of HICWA, the overriding regulatory body for safety in our hospitals. There's the matter of the training of personnel. There's the matter of the quality of personnel. There's the matter of the colleges and the relationship between the colleges and the hospital. As a politician, I must represent However, there are medical decisions that I cannot take because I don't have the competence to take. But I would be anxious that we would have a full-time consultant accident and emergency officer at Portlaoise. That has never been the case. It's a busy accident and emergency unit. It's not a small unit as has been portrayed in the national media. There have been almost 42,000 procedures performed in a very busy
I think maybe that argument is even reinforced by the census figures published yesterday. But if I can come back to the question, and you've prefaced and put in context your own position and where you're coming from, but how do we know this is not a temporary fix?
Well, listen, I can do no more than to reflect the views and the needs of the people of the constituency of Laois Offaly and the county of Laois. You quite rightly advert to census figures which show an increase in population far more in Laois than any other county. Therefore, we must have adequate medical and surgical services available in our hospital. Is this a long-term solution? I can't say for definite, but what I will say is that I will continue to fight for health services for the people of Laois Offaly. It's my role and function as a public representative, but there are medical decisions that ultimately I'm not competent to judge or make.
So for those who are concerned, for those who are contemplating marching on Sunday, really the issue hasn't gone away, it has just been postponed?
Well, let's see the situation on Monday week. I would expect that the HSE and the Department of Health have now the numbers. The figures are stacking up for Portlaoise. There is no reason for change. There is no reason for any reduction in hours. There is no reason to in any way adversely impact upon the very fine service that was provided in Portlaoise. And I would hope that that will be into the long term and that the future of the hospital can be secured well into the future.
To what extent, just finally, to what extent, if any, did the presence of hundreds of people at a public meeting add to the impetus or the drive or the desire to fix this problem yesterday?
I'm sure it helped. The number one priority of James Riley has been to facilitate the recruitment of personnel from overseas. These are numbers that are required not only for Portlaoise but right throughout the country. It appears now that these numbers are looking favourable, are looking well. Great credit is due to everyone in the hospital who all work particularly hard to deliver a service for the people of Laois Offaly and indeed beyond Kildare, Carlow, Kilkenny and North Tipperary. And yes, a reflection of a public mood is always welcome in circumstances such as this.
Charlie Flanagan, thank you for taking our phone call this morning.
You're very welcome.
Charlie Flanagan is the local Gael TD for Portlaoise and indeed for the Laois Offaly constituency. Now let's get some reaction to this. Alison, good morning.
Good morning.
You're a nurse, Alison. What's your take on this?
Well, I welcome this good news from Charlie. I'm glad to hear that we're going to be looking forward with confidence to continued excellent service provided in our hospital in A&E, and then we hope that the doctors will arrive on the 11th of July. I'm thinking, though, doctors don't arrive overnight. I mean, a doctor is in training for a very long time. We have been flagging this problem for years. We know there's been a shortage of doctors coming online. We've known this for 2 years.
Alison? 2 years,
yes.
Right.
Yes. So it's not as if it hasn't been unflagged or it hasn't been unknown. What have we been doing for the last few years? What's the previous government been doing? Why have we a shortage of doctors? As I say, they don't just arrive overnight. They take years of training, years of work before they're allowed work in A&Es as competent service providers. But let's get back to the area and our hospital. We need this hospital. As I said to you yesterday, the people of Laois need 24 service in A&E. We are a very, very busy, efficient A&E. We provide so much care for so many people, from road traffic accidents to mums-to-be, babies, stroke patients. All hospitals in the country are full. They can't cope. How can they cope with any more if each individual hospital in the country cannot do what they are able to do, which is their bit to provide care for patients at the early stages? We hear about the golden hour. We hear about, the cost of rehab when patients aren't treated very early. We know all of these things. This is not rocket science. We know we need early interventions. We know... anyway, I just welcome this good news, and I thank Charlie for his hard work in this area. I've been on to him a lot lately, and I know he's doing his best. But again, I repeat, This has not come out of the blue. We have known this for years, so why does it take so long?
Are you satisfied with the absence of specifics? And granted, he is not a medical professional and is probably not qualified to judge how many doctors or registrars or whatever are needed. But when he is told there will be sufficient numbers, do you accept that sufficient will be sufficient?
I can only believe what Charlie says. I have every confidence in Charlie's, is what he says is true. I know Mr. Riley is intent on providing services. Well, he knows it's an endless pit of problems that he's inherited. And I would ask everybody to consider nurses. You know, nurses are on duty 24/7. They're best placed to deliver high-quality care around the clock. You know, we need to use the expanded role of the nurse.
And the focus has very much been on doctor numbers, but what is the staffing level for nurses like in Portlaoise?
I don't have the figures in my head at the moment, but I know that there has been a recruitment embargo since 2009, and I know that not one nurse has been replaced, whether she has retired through ill health, through her age has come about, you know, her normal retirement age, or whether a nurse has gone abroad. I don't know, but I know that there has been no recruitment of nurses. There is a recruitment embargo that the last government brought in on September 2009, and this is just decimating our health services all around Ireland. We are not providing best care, I have to tell you, in any of our hospitals, in my opinion. We are barely providing cover, and it is inadequate.
Alison, on one final point, the longer term picture, Charlie Flanagan was unable to give a cast iron assurance that we won't be back to this situation of dwindling numbers in perhaps a few months or next year or at some point in the future. Does that alarm you?
I'm going to be optimistic and hope that you know, this is going to highlight, this and Roscommon and other hospitals, this is going, and Tala indeed, Tala are having their A&E reviewed, and HICWA is moving in, I understand. You know, I think we must continue to strive to have, one day at a time, we're going to have better care. We're going to have to address the issue of the recruitment embargo. We're going to have to address the non-replacement of nurses at the front line in acute areas. This must be done, and we must continue to provide for the care of the elderly, whether it's in their home, whether it's with the support of the community nurses, or whether it's in long stay. This must be addressed because it's clogging up, as the people say, which is not a word I like, it's what the media seems to use, but the back doors, if you like, of our hospitals are closed and the front doors are wide open. So we are not able to cope with the influx that is happening. And you know, the census revealed yesterday that there's been a 20% increase in the population of Laois. So, you know, no wonder we've been strapped and wrecked and working hard, because we know we've been extra busy.
There are over 80,000 people in the county now, and that doesn't even take into account the border areas in, say, parts of Offaly or parts of Kildare where people may travel to Portlaoise from. Alison, thank you very much for taking our call this morning.
Thank you very much.